State lawmakers in Alabama voted yesterday to enact a law that, for all intents and purposes, bans the practice of abortion at all stages of pregnancy. Now, the only exception of the bill would make it in cases where the danger to the mother's health. But common exceptions like cases of rape or incest would not be permitted. Now, the Republican governor of Alabama has yet to sign this controversial bill into law, but both supporters and opponents are already gearing up for what promises to be a legal showdown all the way to the Supreme Court. Well, of course, we have to discuss this here, and I bring in two of my favorite females. For our 360 view, we turn to our political panel, former Georgia state lawmaker Dee Dawkins and Carrie Sheffield, national editor of Accuracy of Media. Thank you for joining me, ladies. You know, every time I look at my Twitter account, I think we can't become more polarized and more angry as a country. Something like this comes up, and I'm absolutely disgusted by just the back and forth fighting on it. It reminds me that we definitely have some issues that need to be addressed here in this country. I'm going to start with you, Dee. Georgia, Kentucky, Mississippi, Ohio, and now Alabama are making these anti-abortion bills. I don't think it's a coincidence. Do you feel like this is a concerted effort by the GOP to overturn Roe versus Wade without going through the Supreme Court?
Yes, thank you, Scotty, for having us today. We know that it's a concerted effort to overturn Roe v. Wade. That's why they're making the litmus test so strong, especially in Alabama, where they're saying that even in cases of rape and incest, that you won't even be allowed to have an abortion. I mean, this is an all-out attack on women's right for reproductive freedom. And I can't even understand why this is a partisan issue. If anything, it should be a gender issue, because contrary to whatever anyone may believe as it relates to being pro-life or pro-choice, I still believe that a woman has the right to choose and decide what she does with her body.
Well, that's the thing. You know, Carrie, pro-life usually means an abortion is allowed in the case of rape or incest, and you're still considered to be pro-life. This took it to the next level. Do you think this bill crosses the line and might cause some of those very strong pro-life advocates to maybe not be as supportive of it?
No, I don't think so. I think that the question of rape and incest, it really has to do with, at the end of the day, whether there is a human life at stake. It's not about how that human life got there. And the reality is we have 2 million people, 2 million families who are looking for children. They would love to adopt. That's 36 families for every one child that's ever placed for adoption. So there are loving alternatives in these tragic, horrible situations where rape or incest has occurred. But at the end of the day, if we look at science, once conception occurs, there is a distinct, fully separate human life. It is a separate, cherished life that is separate from a mother's body. And so the argument that this is only a mother's choice is simply not true in the sense of we as a society, we have to be very clear about, do we value human life? Do we value and cherish each individual human life as priceless and precious in the eyes of God?
You know what? I think Carrie does bring up a point that both sides can agree on, is why we're having contention. Where is life beginning? Where does it end? That's been the conversation that's been going on for years about it. And in this case, Carrie, while it was mainly men in the Alabama legislature that voted this into legislation, Alabama has a female Republican governor. And do you think, does this help the pro-life narrative in the fact that there is going to be a female that is going to be actually signing this bill into law into Alabama if allowed?
Well, I don't think it should be about gender. I think that if you are a non-Jew, you should have been against the Nazis, even though the Nazis were persecuting Jews. If it is an innocent life, it should be men and women linking arms together and defending innocent life at the end of the day. And that is truly what is at stake here. So I don't buy it when men sit down and say, oh, I have nothing to say because I'm a man. Actually, you know what? Abortion is a fig leaf. It excuses men from their lack of responsible behavior. And I think we need to hold men accountable every time they abandon women and make them feel like they have no other option. These men need to be held to account. That's truly what's the problem here. Our society has allowed men to engage in reckless abandonment of their own children. And this is a flawed societal choice that we have made. And I am so proud to see that there are so many people standing up for life.
Well, that's the thing, Dee. I know you agree in holding reckless men accountable for their actions. I know that. Where is the pro-life and Carrie wrong in this situation when they're saying, listen, it's a life. We want to defend a female's life that might be the baby's life from being killed?
Because her argument to me is disingenuous only because when you say human rights, imagine a woman who has been raped or someone who has experience incest, the trauma that they will face for the rest of their lives, and to tell them, because people are waiting on children, when they have to deal with that stigma and that type of dehumanization for the rest of their life based on what happened to them, I cannot even imagine what I would have done had I been raped and then required to carry a baby to term. That is the most insensitive, insidious thing I have ever heard in my entire life. And you know what? The 14th Amendment, when they did Roe v. Wade, gave people the right to privacy. And a child cannot live outside of the womb on their own, especially at 6 weeks, 8 weeks, 12 weeks, 16 weeks. So this whole argument is just absurd to me. And I don't believe that life necessarily starts at the point of conception, because most women, many women, don't even know they're pregnant at 4 weeks and at 6 weeks like they did in Georgia. I mean, this whole conversation has gone way off the rafter, the scales, and I think we need to bring ourselves back to center and let women decide what's best for women's bodies and their reproductive freedom and justice. We've got to stop this. It's too polarized. I mean, when did this become a Democrat versus a Republican issue? This is about women and their basic right to have freedom and justice in this country.
And Carrie, you know, as you brought up the 14th Amendment, but I have to bring back to the 10th Amendment. I find it interesting this is happening really in southern states. So, Carrie, in this case, is this a 10th Amendment issue since it's not laid out specifically in the Constitution regarding abortion? Is this just like whether we're talking about the legalization of marijuana, anything else, is this something the state should be deciding on rather than a national decree on whether abortion is legal or illegal within a state's borders?
I think the Supreme Court will make that ultimate judgment call. I disagree. I do personally think that this is a federal issue. This is inherently in our documents about a right to life. And I want to push back on what was said about dehumanization. It is true that rape is incredibly dehumanizing, and it is tragic and horrible, and we need to hold accountable and lock up everyone who engages in this disgusting behavior. But I just want to say, dehumanizing in one case does not justify dehumanizing in another case. Two wrongs do not make a right. It is evil and it is unjustifiable to take away an innocent life just because you know that some evil has occurred in the case of rape, and it is unaccountable in the eyes of God. We see it throughout the Word of God that life is to be held sacred. And so no amount of justifying it, no amount of verbiage around it will allow for this type of thing to be like correct or right. And you don't even have to be in any sort of denomination. It's fundamentally a human right to life.
Well, let me tell you, ladies, thank you so much for having a respectful conversation about this issue. You're both passionate about it. We all are, and I appreciate and respect the both of you for having this conversation. Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Hey YouTube, thanks for checking out our channel. We hope you enjoyed the video. We have tons of content for you just like this. For more of RT America's one-of-a-kind news and analysis, be sure to subscribe and never stop questioning more.